My name is Tawny Barrett, and I am the Director of Communications for Bladder Cancer Canada. I am really excited to be here today talking to Julie, who is a bladder cancer survivor. I'm not going to say too much about Julie's story. I'm going to wait for her to share that herself. I will say, though, that I have never, in my 3 years of working with Bladder Cancer Canada, heard a story quite like hers. I think you are going to be quite literally shocked at what she has been through, and how she has lived with bladder cancer for going on 28 years. I am by no means a bladder cancer expert. What you're going to hear tonight is real talk between me and a patient. What I do know is the more that I work with patients across Canada about bladder cancer, the more I know that it's so important to get this message out to as many people as possible so that they can recognize the signs and symptoms of bladder cancer. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Julie to our podcast today. Can you begin, Julie, by introducing yourself?
My name is Julie, and I'm 49 years old. I've been dealing with bladder cancer since the age of 22.
22 is really young. I don't know many women that were diagnosed that young.
Yep. December of 94.
Just before the holidays.
Just before the holidays. Yeah, it was like mid-December. And I remember the urologist telling me, I'll let you enjoy the holidays because there's just like 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks. And so early January 95, I had the surgery, my first surgery.
So I have a lot of questions. So what were your first symptoms?
Blood in the urine. That is it. I had no pain. I had nothing else. The only indication was going to the bathroom, turning around to flush and going, did I just see red? Like, was it, and then you start getting a little bit confused what that was. And, is it the time of the month or stuff like that? And then it's like, okay, we'll see when I go again. And it was the same thing. So it was pretty bright red, and then the blood clots were there as well. So I really didn't know what was going on. The irony of all of this was that my father was going through bladder cancer when this happened to me.
Really?
So he was diagnosed 3 or 4 months before me. My dad was 56 years old. And then when I told my mom, after a little while, it wasn't going away. I told my mom, and she's like, we need to go see a doctor right away. And we did. They put me on antibiotics, and the blood went away. My urine cleared up. Everything was fine. And as soon as the antibiotic wore off, it came back again. So we played that game for nearly 3 months. Okay. And then my mom insisted that I see the urologist to have a cystoscopy done or something because of my dad. And they're like, what if it's genetic? What's going on? They didn't know, really what to think of it. And they brushed me off basically and kind of said, has to be just a urinary tract infection, could be a blood vessel, could be this, could be that, but you don't fall in that category. So, and this is because of my age, because I was a female, and they say it's a typical, men over 60, men over 70, who have this. So you're not really a candidate. So they didn't really take it seriously at all.
Even though your dad had just been diagnosed with
right.
cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And even your dad at his age, he's not even quite in that category of a man in his 60s, 70s. He was a little bit younger when he was diagnosed.
He was. My dad's a heavy smoker, though. He's a 1-pack-a-day smoker.
Okay.
I was more of a social smoker. If I was going out with my friends, stuff like that, every once in a while at home after a meal. So I was maybe 6, 7 cigarettes a day, like not heavy, but still smoking. And I started smoking around the age of 16.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So,
And I get asked this question a lot, and I think about this question myself as a woman when I hear about seeing red in the toilet. Like, what makes it different than starting your period? Like, how can a woman know that it's different than her cycle?
because it was bright red and it was the entire bowl, the entire water. It was like a bowl of jello.
Really?
It was entirely red. There was no mistaking. Like, I thought it might have been just, I don't know. Like, you're young, you're 22, you're like, did I really see what I just saw? And then it repeats. But I felt fine. Like, my father had pressure all the time. He had pain. He was a truck driver. So every time he would hit the bumps, he would really feel it in his bladder.
Okay.
And he had the urgency to go urinate. And I had none of that. The only indication I had was the blood in the urine and the blood clots.
Okay.
And yeah.
And you said the antibiotics that you were put on, it stopped the bleeding. It stopped.
It did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
they
then
just assumed you had a UTI and treated it like that.
Right. They treated it that way. So
Okay.
they really kind of didn't want to go there. They didn't think I was prime candidate for it, even though my father had it. So after 3 months, my mom got pretty upset because she's like, this is enough. She's like, there's something wrong.
Right.
So we had 2 urologists here. My dad was seeing one, and she's like, why don't you go see the other? She's a female. Maybe you'd be more comfortable with her. They referred me directly to her. So I went to see her in her office for a consultation. She asked me for a urine sample. I gave her the sample, and it was bright red. And she looked at me and she's like, oh, that's pretty red. And she's like, I still don't think there's anything to it. But she goes, you know what? On the safe side, we'll schedule you for a cystoscopy. And I went with my parents, and I was in the room just with the urologist, and she did the cystoscopy. And in the middle of this cystoscopy, she kind of looked at me sideways like this, and she goes, I can't believe it. You have a tumor the size of a golf ball in your bladder.
Oh my God.
And she says, you have a cancer.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she goes, Julie, she goes, do you smoke? And I said, yes. She goes, the garbage is right there on your way out.
Good.
So that is the first thing. And she goes, you do not want to mess with this. She goes, you're way too young. She goes, you're very fortunate that you had these signs that we could take this out.
So what type of bladder cancer were you diagnosed with?
I'm not exactly sure. I was always told that it was a T1.
Okay.
Or a grade 1 cancer.
Okay. So early stages and okay.
It did not go through the bladder wall, no.
So it was not non-muscle invasive when you were diagnosed.
Correct.
But if it had progressed, if you had been delayed in getting diagnosed, it could have potentially been muscle invasive.
Right.
Yeah. I can't even imagine the thought of being 22 years old and like having your bladder threatened. Like I've heard about older people having their bladders removed and living with a ostomy pouch, but at 22 years old, you were so young.
Yes.
So how did they end up treating it? What was your treatment plan?
She did the surgery. And I remember waking up from the surgery, and she came in the room, and I didn't know I was going to have a tube or anything. And I remember asking the nurse what this was, and she told me, because initially I don't think that I was supposed to be in the hospital that long. I think it was supposed to be removed, and then if your blood pressure is okay, stuff like that, you go home same day. And then they said the doctor's going to be in and talk to you shortly. And she came in, and she just kind of gave me, she's a little bit of a sarcastic, she's a quirky character, the urologist. And she just came in and she's like, you gave me a heck of a problem. She goes, I was late for my next surgery, or she had to cancel the next surgery, or I made her late or something. And she just said it took a lot longer to remove the tumor than she thought. But
Wow.
she was able to remove it all. And she goes, you're so lucky to still have your bladder. And she
Right.
goes, don't ever smoke and this and that. And she's like, you won't make it to 40.
If you had persisted with smoking.
Smoking and whatever other little genes I have. So that was my first time. Scared me enough. I never smoked since.
Okay.
But I've had many recurrences since then. After 30, I stopped quitting. I stopped counting the numbers of surgeries that I've had.
Really?
Because my first year I had 3 surgeries alone. So every 3 months I would go back, they would grow back.
Wow.
So I've always been every 3 months, every 6 months, every 8 months. And the longest in my time that I've been without producing a tumor is almost 2 years. And then they started coming back again.
So you've been dealing with reoccurrences for, you said you were 49, so 27 years you've been back and forth, surgeries, seeing your urologist. It's not like they removed it and then that was it. It's been a lifetime.
Right. Yes, it's like a cluster of tumors and they just keep growing back. So it's been one of those things, kind of like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? No one could kind of figure it out.
Right.
And they just started saying, eat organic, don't have any chemicals in your home, don't be around this, don't be around that, don't dye your hair, because I had dyed my hair. Okay. And they said nothing in your hair also, quit smoking, have a lot of green tea, a lot of cabbage, a lot of broccoli, anything really green, the green family of vegetables, the anti-cancer type stuff, like eat a lot of those things, eat a lot of fish. So basically this is what I was told to do, like to try to make a change.
So it sounds like you've done everything that the doctors have told you to do, and your cancer continues to come back. Have they treated it at any point with BCG? Have you ever had a BCG treatment?
I've had BCG treatments, I believe in 97, 98.
Okay.
And it was once a week, every Wednesday for the 6-week period. Yeah. I went for 4 weeks. And when I went for my 5th one, she said that I was pretty burned up, like the urethra and stuff like that. And she couldn't go in and put more in. She goes, you need to heal. Okay. So she said, come back in a couple of months and we'll do another cystoscopy. So the tumors that were located wherever she told me they were gone, and more had grew somewhere else in the bladder. And I did the BCG again in the early 2000s, and it was pretty much the same thing. Okay.
So it doesn't sound like the BCG was necessarily working for you, because they just kept coming back.
Right. They would burn the originals, but the others would grow somewhere else at another location in the bladder.
And have they always, it sounds like they've always caught the tumors before they could go through.
Because I was there every 3 months, and then when I was good for at least 3 months in a row, and then 6 months, they're like, okay, we'll see you in 6 months. And if I went back in 6 months, no recurrences, we'll see you in 6 months. And as soon as they started again, I went back to square one, 3 months. Wow. So then you kind of have to prove yourself.
Right.
So every time you go back, it's like, but now I'm still on a 6 months.
Okay.
I actually had a cystoscopy. I had surgery last time in June last year, 2021, and they removed 4 tumors. And I went back for cystoscopy November 17th, 2021, and I was clean. Okay. And I went back yesterday and I was clean. So I was ecstatically happy. there's some little red areas of concern, as they call them,
Right.
but no tumors. So I'm like, okay, I'm on my lucky streak.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll take it when I can. Yay, I get to go to work. I get to, exercise. I get to plan, different things without planning to go to the hospital instead and get more blood drawn and prepare for surgery again, time off from work, So I was very excited to go back to work. Like as soon as they told me, I was just excited just to live my life,
To have, a few months where.
Yeah, another break.
So what kind of work do you do?
I'm a dental administrator. I work
Okay.
as a hygiene coordinator and a treatment coordinator in a dental office.
So that's a big deal for you to have to take off time from work too.
Yes. Yeah.
So you were doing, so it was every 6 months unless they found something, and then it's every 3 months, and then
Every 3 months.
So can you talk a little bit about what's involved when they find a tumor, like what's involved with the surgery?
Well, when they find a tumor, they usually tell me that the hospital will call me with my surgery date, which is always within 2 weeks, because they don't want them to multiply. Some tumors, when they go in, there's actually a monitor next to me, so I get to see the inside of my bladder and I get to see the tumors and what they look like, which was not done in previous years, like in the beginning. And I find it so interesting when they find them, because I just look at them and I go, there you are. Like, why aren't you leaving me alone, type thing. They kind of look a little bit like jellyfish. Some of them.
Really?
Yeah, the irony. Yeah, they look a little bit like jellyfish. Yeah.
You've seen more than one. You've seen more than one inside your
They're
bladder?
clustered together, like one next to the other, like just little clusters, like 2, 3 of them hanging out together. Yeah. So once that's diagnosed, they send me for the blood work and everything for pre-op, and I get the surgery date, and it's usually same day you go home, as long as you can produce at least, I think it's like 215 milliliters of urine after your surgery. After they take out the catheter, you have to be on a catheter for at least 2, possibly 3 hours. And you have to be able to urinate by yourself.
Okay.
And have no fever and no blood pressure issues. And then you get released home, and you have to drink a lot of water, avoid the caffeine. I drink some organic cranberry juice mixed in with some ice.
Right.
Yeah. So when I do that.
How do they do the surgery? Do they
well, I've looked at YouTube videos. I'm not exactly sure. They kind of go through the same thing with the cystoscopy, which is they just go through with the camera through the urethra, and they burn or they cut.
Okay, so it is through a catheter. It's not like they're making an incision.
They do not make an incision in your stomach. No.
Okay.
No, always through the urethra. Yes.
And you've said that you've lost count the number of times really that you've
because after 27, 28 years, I'm going to be 50 in June, so I'm closer to 28 years doing this. And the first few years, it was pretty much every 3 months. They wouldn't leave me alone, and then it was surgeries every 6 months. So if you do the math on that versus 28 years, it's a lot of surgeries. It's a lot of surgery.
I can't even imagine. Like it's so reassuring for me to hear this in some way, because it sounds like they're doing everything they can to preserve your bladder.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's so important to go for your cystoscopies and to be on top of it. And because it's so, especially for me, with originally not having any symptoms besides the blood in the urine, when you're feeling good, there's nothing wrong with you and you don't have a fever and there's no pain. Oh, it's just red. It's going to go away. It's easy to have that train of thought of it's nothing serious.
Mhm.
And especially after you go through all the cystoscopies, and now it's even, I'm not going to say worse, but now I have no blood. I have absolutely zero anything. And I can go in, like I went in yesterday and they could tell me, yep, look at those. You have 4 or 5 new friends inside there, that are growing. And I don't know. So that's the key. The key is to go in when you're supposed to go in, when your urologist tells you to go in,
Mhm.
because the early detection is what saves, and what saves lives, and what's going to save your bladder is to always go with your urologist and what they recommend for you.
So it doesn't sound like you have blood in the urine as a symptom anymore. It's just
No,
it shows up on your scans that
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So if you hadn't been listening to your urologist's advice, you could have these
Mm-hmm.
tumors growing and they could become muscle invasive. And
Absolutely. They've
wow.
checked my kidneys twice also, just to
Okay.
make sure that there was no traveling between the bladder and the kidney connection.
Mhm.
And my kidneys have always been clean. So I've done that special test. I think they do it like every 7, 8 years or so. And I know I've done it twice, and my kidneys have always been really good. So, mhm.
This is an incredible story. Like I haven't heard anybody's story like this. And the fact that your dad was also diagnosed with bladder cancer, and has
Mhm.
his bladder cancer been similar to yours, or did they treat it and it never came back?
He treated it, never came back, but he also he did not quit smoking. He's
Okay.
still a smoker. My father's 82 years old, still a smoker. And as far as I know, he's like, oh, it just kind of happened once. I'm fine. And he's one of those people that brushed it off and didn't really follow through with all of his appointments.
Okay.
But I have to say he's doing well. He
Okay.
doesn't have any symptoms or anything like that. But if I would have done what my dad did, I don't even know if I would be alive today or if I would have a bladder in my
Right.
particular case.
Right.
My story wouldn't end that way. I don't believe so.
No, I don't I don't think so either. Not hearing how persistent your cancer has been and just
Mm-hmm.
coming back the way that it does. And I know a lot of bladder cancer patients that we talk to, they are prepared with the news that they are going to have to deal with reoccurrences, likely for the rest of their life.
Yes. That's what they told me. They said, this is a lifelong, you're going to be 80, you're going to be on this table. And even if we see you every 5 years or every 10 years, if you get to go that far, they say the more you can show up and not have any tumors, the longer we'll let you go. So I keep negotiating my time off. It's
Right.
like, oh, 6 months. Yeah, but I've been clean since November last year. Can I have 8 months? And he looks at me yesterday and he's like, don't push it.
Right. Right. Because
So
anything could happen in those extra 2 months. And then
exactly. Yeah.
so I'm curious, like, what is it like for you mentally and emotionally to like, have you gotten used to it? Is it stressful for you?
I'm always stressed the morning of because I don't want to hear that I have something again and something again to go through physically, mentally, prepare yourself for the pain and all the burning and just everything you need to go through, plus the time off and just like very disruptive for your life, to take care of this. And it's always kind of like in the shadow waiting. You don't know when it's going to happen. So it's stressful that way. I have to say over the years though, I've been better with it. Like in the beginning, I would cry a lot when they would tell me, and I would kind of, why aren't they going away? Why me? Like the pity type thing. And now it's more like, you know what? There's people out there so much worse than I am. there are people out there that don't get to have their bladder, that are going through much difficult times. And how fortunate am I to be a low grade, something that could be taken care of. And yeah, it's gonna get me a little time off, like a week or two, and then I'll be back to my normal life.
Mm-hmm.
So I've accepted it. It took years to accept it, though. It wasn't, especially when you're young at 20 something, it's very different, from your friends and work and different things. But I can say I'm used to it now, and I deal with it when they come, and I know what it is. Doesn't make it any less fun or something that I want,
Mm-hmm.
but they told me at an early age, this is a long life thing you're going to have to go through. You're always going to have to do your cystoscopies,
Mm-hmm.
and they just might be, further and further apart, hopefully.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I can't wait for that time where a whole year can go by, and then possibly another year, and get to 3 years. Okay, we'll see you in 3 years. I don't even know if I'll ever hear those words.
That would be
But,
amazing. That would be the dream, wouldn't it?
It would be such a dream to consistently show up without any tumors. That's the goal.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's
You know,
and you mentioned that. So after you have your surgery, you typically have to take a week or 2 weeks off of work to recover.
they usually sign me about a week. Yeah, no heavy lifting, no weights and stuff like that.
Okay.
Mhm. So, and to rest and to drink a lot of fluids. Mhm.
And do you have children as well? Like, have you been taking care of kids through all of this?
My children are older now. I have an 18 and a 15-year-old daughters.
Okay.
But even through my pregnancy, I had to see a high risk doctor, and I kept seeing my urologist. And they still recommended that I get my cystoscopies done before, I think it was the third or the fourth month of pregnancy.
Okay.
And I went, and there was 4 tumors, and they took them out. I did not do any anesthesia or anything like that. They just kind of burned them in the office.
Gosh.
And I said, I do not want any anesthetic or anything like that. And he's like, they're so small. And he goes, we're going to take care of them right away. And it was basically the same thing with my 2 pregnancies. So 4 tumors each pregnancy. And after I gave birth to each of my daughters, went back for the cystoscopies maybe 3 months after, and they had grown back again.
My gosh.
So I'm
gosh.
I'm used to it. Yeah. My urologist was, I lived in the States back then. I'm originally from Canada, and I'm in Canada now.
Okay.
And I had my urologists here. I moved and relocated to Long Island, New York. I got married, moved there. My partner at the time lived there, so I joined him, and I found a urologist there, and he's the one who did my surgeries while I was pregnant. And he's one of the top urologists in Long Island, so I was in very good hands. But even with him, he was like, I said, oh, so am I like your first pregnant patient? And he's like, oh, of course not, very sarcastically.
Right.
But I was very, very comfortable with him. I had the most confidence in him to do this. And yeah, he did it twice for me with both my pregnancies.
And was it painful to have it done without any drugs?
It's painful. They burn you. They go in, and he just burns them right there. And they put this type of metal plate thing, like it's very thin, like just under you. And he would put a little jelly on it, a little jelly substance. And then I would have to lay flat right underneath it. And he would go in, and he goes, are you ready? And then I go, yeah. And then he goes, okay, I'll start burning them now. So it's difficult not to jump. Yeah. You kind of just have to hold you cool and say, he's doing this. It's burning. It's really burning, and it makes you jump a little bit. But once it's done, it's done. And I had this relief of, wow, tumor, 5 minutes ago, and they're gone now.
Right.
And I really wanted them out to continue the pregnancy, because they said it's so dangerous to leave them in, the way that they multiply and the way that they grow so fast, especially during pregnancy,
Right.
because your immune system is not the same.
Yeah, and I'm thinking you wouldn't want to put the baby in danger too of having this growing
Exactly.
body.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it had to be done in the earlier stage of the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. Your story is unlike any story that I've ever heard. Like, I think
I know I'm trying to find another me out there, but the most important message is that, if there is anybody out there that thinks that there's something wrong or that they have blood in the urine, not to brush it off because you're a female, because you're young. You could be 18, you could be, I was 22, but when my urologist found it, she goes, this tumor did not grow yesterday. You've had this since you were a teenager.
Right.
For it to become that big and start showing signs. And she goes, you're so lucky that it started to bleed.
Right.
She goes, a lot of that's how the cancer gets so advanced and beyond, because there is no symptoms. Sometimes you don't get the blood in the urine, so that's the tricky part about the bladder, is that, it's almost like a silent cancer. You have no clue.
Right. That it could be there lurking. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. We did an interview with a doctor just last week, and he talked about how, like, some grades of bladder cancer, and what you're describing, it sounds so much like what he was saying about how, the low grade cancers they present like a pussycat. That's what he called them. And he said they're really annoying, and, it's frustrating to deal with them, but you learn to live with them. And then he said the higher grade ones are more like a tiger, and those are the ones that can be very, very aggressive and life threatening. So
yes,
you've been living with this pussycat of bladder cancer.
That doesn't
go away. Like, it will not leave you alone.
They say it grows like weeds. They say we have no clue what is doing it. Is it genetics? It can't be smoking, because I quit smoking. Mm-hmm. And then they talked about processed food. They say everything you eat, it could be down to your shampoo, your makeup, your hairspray, anything. I'm like, oh my God, you can't stop living.
That's right.
You try to pinpoint exactly what makes these cells multiply, and then to grow back. And then the other interesting thing is, when they don't grow, then you're like, what's up with that? Why? Right. What did I do differently? Not much. So why did the cells calm down all of a sudden? That's,
Yeah, there's no way of knowing, I guess, unless you write down every single thing. Like, you keep a detailed journal, and that sounds frustrating in itself to. Mm-hmm. I think I would do what you do and just kind of live your life the best you can. Take the precautions that like smoking, or you exercise, sleep, all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Feed your body nutritious food most of the time. The 80-20 rule is good.
Right.
Try to eat really, really healthy. And I eat a lot of green. I eat a lot of quinoa. I drink 2 to 3 cups of green tea a day. Last thing I do at night is drink the green tea. I kind of want it to absorb in my body before I go to bed.
Yeah.
So I do my best.
No, you are. It sounds like you're doing your best. You are. I mean, you're here and you're talking with me today. This is incredible. Yeah. You've covered off so many of the questions that I had. I suppose one thing I would like to ask is, like, what do you wish you had known then that you know now about all of this?
Well, first of all, I never would have smoked. That's number one. Even though I'm still not smoking now and they're still growing back, I still think that um, it made them possibly more aggressive, like with the bleeding and stuff like that. Maybe because of the smoking.
Mm-hmm.
That even if I had that genetic component to create the tumor, the smoking actually aggravated it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But even back then, it's kind of like, don't, um, what I've heard all the time back then was, you're a female, you're too young. They discarded. My family doctor discarded it. Even the urologist at first, she's like, maybe it's a form of, they don't want to panic you,
Mm-hmm.
especially the urologist, until she's absolutely sure she's not going to go there to even put that in your mind. So maybe that's a little bit of what she was doing, like protecting you in a way until it's really real. You know, but there is no age for bladder cancer. There's absolutely no age. There's no, you know, the male, the female. It's yeah. Like I said, mine probably grew when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So is it hormone related? I have no idea.
And
That's the other thing too, is like I was on the pill and I stopped taking the pill also like in my 30s, and still that didn't stop it. So it's kind of like, was it, you know, I tried a lot of different little things, you know, and I haven't colored my hair since I was 26.
Wow.
And that's another thing. So I was like, okay, let me not do this, not do that. You know,
tried everything just to
yeah,
stop.
yeah. I've tried a lot of different things. Yeah.
Well, thank goodness for your mom who just like made sure you went and saw a urologist and didn't let that go.
For sure. For sure.
Wow. I don't think I have any more questions for you. I think
No.
I think it's so amazing that you reached out to us on social media, on Instagram, and the fact that you were chatting with another bladder cancer survivor that lives across the country, a woman just being diagnosed. I think recently she was diagnosed at 37.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that social media connected the two of you. And for me to see the two of you kind of, you know, talking back and forth, I was like, this is amazing, because we are really, like you were saying earlier, like bladder cancer doesn't have an age. It doesn't discriminate against gender.
No.
And we're really taking it seriously, that we want more women, younger women especially, to know that this could happen to them. So
absolutely. A UTI could be just a UTI, but be persistent with your doctor. Be insistent when you know something's not right. If it keeps reoccurring, if you see blood in your urine that's not going away, if, you know, they give you a prescription and you're better, but it comes back again, don't think it's just another UTI. Like, take it further. Insist, you know, insist that you want this taken care of. Insist that you would like to have a cystoscopy done, you know, to rule it out, to put your mind at ease. You know, it's really worth taking those steps in the little bit of time, you know. And a cystoscopy, it's a very short procedure, and it's a tiny bit uncomfortable, but something very doable. And the good thing, I guess, to say about it is that you find out on the spot. There is no, you have to wait for your results. You have to wait for this. You get to see it, actually. You know, you get to your diagnosis right away. So your mind is put at ease right away.
Perfect. And it ultimately will save your life.
Absolutely. And that's the key, is to go to your appointments when you know something's off, even with anything beyond bladder cancer or anything. Don't wait. Be insistent with your doctor. You know?
It's such good advice. That's such good advice. And we are going to be sharing this information during Bladder Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm really, really hoping that this will help people recognize the symptoms and then
Absolutely.
get checked out.
Absolutely. Go get checked out.
Thank you
If you
so
have
much.
any doubts, always listen to the voice in your head. When in doubt, always it's the angels talking to you.
That's right.
Basically, listen to it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your story.
You're welcome. It was so nice speaking to you, Tony.
Well, you are an inspiration. You are. It's just amazing to me that I can share your story with other people, and they know they can learn that this is a disease that they can live with if they have to.
They do.
Yeah.
It's not always fun, but you know what? You still have your life. It's little breaks from it. It's inconvenience. It is annoying.
Yeah.
It's, but you know what? Like I said, there's so many other people so much worse.
Yeah.
And you have to be thankful for what you're dealt with. And as long as, you can continue to live your life with it, it's the best I can ask. Exactly.
Yeah,
It is
that a lot.
manageable.
That it's a very manageable disease, and it's not a death sentence. And I think that's really important for people to know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Julie, in my opinion, is a warrior. She has gone through so much, and for her to sit here today and to be so warm and positive and to share her experience the way that she did, I'm imagining that as a listener, you're quite blown away as well. In closing, there are currently 80,000 Canadians living with a bladder cancer diagnosis, and 12,500 more will be diagnosed this year. At Bladder Cancer Canada, we are doing everything we can to increase awareness of this devastating disease to as many Canadians as possible. Our mission is simple: to support patients, increase awareness, and fund research. You can find out more information about bladder cancer, our organization, and webinars by visiting our website at bladdercancercanada.org. Please join us in making our vision a reality, a world where bladder cancer is just a memory. If you enjoyed today's podcast, help us make a difference. Consider making a donation at bladdercancercanada.org. We commit to using all funds in a responsible and transparent way, ensuring that your donation will help people in their fight against bladder cancer. Thank you so much, and until next time, I am your host, Tawny Barrett.